Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tejano Keyboard. What I got going on here today is a very requested video on keyboard sounds, keyboard setups, splits, so on and so forth. So, we're going to cover a lot of material today. What I have in front of you is the Korg Triton. By today's standards, it's kind of an older keyboard. This one happens to be one of the later models, which is the Triton Studio. It has a bunch of other features that the regular one doesn't, but for all intents and purposes, we're going to be using this keyboard to kind of try to show how to, make some splits and some layers. Plus, the Triton series is probably, if not the most, one of the most sold keyboards on the market, closely followed by the M1 from back in the late 80s, early 90s. For those of you who are non-Korg users, hopefully this will give you some ideas on how you can split and layer things within your infrastructure, whether it's Yamaha or Roland or Kurzweil, or even if you're doing plugins via a computer. But for today, we're going to look at this because it's probably one of the most widely used keyboards in Tejano music, even today. I own various other Korg products. I have the Trinity, also the Kronos, but the reason I decided to do it on this keyboard is, like I said, because most people will be familiar with it. That being said, the Korg infrastructure over the years has kind of stayed the same, so a lot of the terminology that I'm going to be using, a lot of the menu setups are going to be pretty much the same with regards to how to layer, how to split. So first of all, let's talk about a typical Tejano setup. This may vary from arrangement to arrangement, but there are three important parts to a typical Tejano ranchera. Those would be an electric piano, okay, strings, and last and most importantly, a lead sound, okay? What I have before you here is an initialized combination. It's under the combi mode in the Tritons or in the Korgs. So what is combi short for? Obviously, it's short for combination. So it could be a combination of sounds that are layered, sounds that are split, and any combinations of that. So right now, it's nothing. It's just like the standard sound that just starts, okay? So the way I like to start is by looking up a good electric piano sound. Now, electric piano sounds will probably vary depending on your flavor, depending on the style of song. If you're doing something more old school, like like a Latin breed tune or something like that, you might want a Rhodes. But for modern, I use modern kind of loosely, but Tejano arrangements that were like popular in the late 80s, early 90s, what we're going to want is an FM, which is frequency modulated synth, a kind of a bright digital sort of piano sound. So what I'm going to do here is go under along this top row right here. As you can see, those little boxes are categories. So I'll click on the first one, but along the sides you have categories like keyboard, organ, bells, mallets, strings, so on and so forth, brass, all this other stuff, right? So I'm going to audition keyboard sounds because that would be where the pianos are. There's acoustic piano. That one's a good maybe. Actually, so was this vintage EP, and if I remember correctly, that's something that I edited, okay? So some of these sounds you might not have on your keyboard. So we're going to use that piano sound, okay? It's called Vintage EP. I don't know if that's probably something that I made a long time ago, but regardless, this is just to kind of to show the idea behind it, okay? So now what we want to do is we want to shift the whole piano down. And the way that we do this is simply like this. You go to menu, and we're going to go to edit track parameter. Now right here it shows you what MIDI channels. Everything is going to be set to 1 in order for it to work with the keyboard for right now. If your keyboard in the global settings is set to be on a different MIDI channel, then whatever corresponding MIDI channel that is would be the one that you would be using. But for right now, most keyboards are set up to channel 1. So we'll leave that alone. Along the bottom, you'll see something that says pitch. We're going to go to that, okay? Now, once we're in this spot right here, I'd like to shift the keyboard down 1 octave, okay? Now, where this says transpose, what we want to do is bring it down 12. I'm sorry, go up 12. And the reason we want to do 12 is because there's 12 notes in a chromatic scale, and then it starts over again. So I'm going to plug in the number 12, hit enter. You can hear it's already up an octave, okay? Okay. So let's exit and go back to the home menu, okay? Now, we want to figure out where we want to be splitting the keyboard, okay? So let's say we want to split the keyboard right around F. That'll give you some room to play. So let's say right here is where we want to split the keyboard. We go to menu. We go to page 4 where it says edit zone and control, okay? So right here we have something that's called key Z and vel Z. Let's stay in key Z. So what this does is it tells you what on the first row what the top note of this sound's going to be. All right, right now we're working linear. Everything's going to be on number 1 because we're using the first sound, and like I said, that we're using keyboard, the electric piano. So the bottom note, the bottom key, let's see here, can be set all the way down to the bottom of the keyboard, which in this case, C -1, which is beyond the range of a piano. But then when you go up here, okay, this is the top note, and it's very easy. You can actually dial in and you can see along the top, the bar is actually moving down. But if it's kind of hard to tell and you want to do it quicker, the best way to do it is to hold down enter and hit the key that you want it to split at. And I don't know if you can see that or not, but it just switched down to F4. So that's F4. And then if you listen, beyond that point, we have no more sound, okay? Let's exit. We're going to go to the second sound, okay? Right now it's set up to fast synth, but we're not hearing anything, and the reason is because we have to go to menu, we have to go to track parameter, go back to the first page where it says MIDI channel. We were talking about this earlier. Right now the second one's set to channel 2. We want that to be channel 1, so that way it can play at the same time, so you can hear the sound again. The problem is that once we get to here, now the keyboard is layered, okay? So what we want to do is go back to menu, go to zone. Now on the second sound, we want to go to the bottom note and tell it the bottom note to be the next note up from where the split is. So if the EP is split at F, the next note would be F sharp. So I hold down enter, hit F sharp, and now you can hear. Okay, so let's pick a string sound, okay? Something that would be a good complement to the piano. So let's go back to exit. We're going to go to the category again. And along the side, category 3 is strings, legato strings. Now, me personally, because I want to have more room, and this is actually a 76 key. I don't know if you guys can see, but it goes way out this way. So, but anyway, I want the strings to be down an octave lower. So we're going to go back to menu. We're going to go to track parameter. Going to go over to the pitch tab. And remember we said an octave is 12, so we're going to do down an octave. It'd be minus 12. Okay. So now we're going to exit. Now, right now off the bat, you can hear that the strings are very loud in comparison to the piano. So what we're going to do is go to the second tab where it says mixer, and you have faders like you would on a keyboard, right? So there's two ways of doing it. You can click on it, and then you can roll it down with the value knob, or I just like to use the fader right here. Okay, so now here's the other thing that we have to change. Okay, so I'm gonna hit the sustain pedal for the piano, so you can hear all the strings are starting to sustain, and that's not a pleasant sound, because if you're trying to play a lead or something, okay, it just sounds like a bunch of mess. So we're gonna go to menu. We're going to go, I believe, to MIDI filter. And then in the first tab right here, you'll see enable damper on the third row here. And what we want to do, because, well, in this case, the only thing I want sustaining is going to be the electric piano. And anything that we do after this point is not going to be related to the piano. So I'm actually going to uncheck all of these, with the exception of the piano, because I do want the damper to work on the piano sound, okay? Let's go back to the home screen. We'll exit. So I'm going to hit the sustain pedal. So now you can see where this side is not sustained. Okay. So let's pick a lead sound to kind of that matches something like that. So let's do like a brass or something, some kind of like, you know, like something that sounds kind of M1-ish, something that would be kind of like the early 90s sort of sound. So first thing we want to do before we do that, let's just go ahead and get all the other stuff out of the way. So let's go to the zone, and we want the third sound, which is going to be our lead sound. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to split it again at the F sharp. Okay. I want to go to the MIDI track, go back to the, menu, edit track parameter. We want to be on the MIDI tab, and we want it to be on channel 1. Okay, so now we got that going on again. All right, so after that, we want to go back to exit, and now we are ready to pick a sound. And remember, we've already disabled the sustain pedal or the damper to not work on this side, so whatever we pick, it'll be fine. So let's go through here. And I'm actually noticing right now off the bat that one thing I forgot to do was to bring down the octave. So let's go back to, here, I'll exit out of that menu. We're going to go to track parameter, we'll go to pitch, and we want it to be down an octave. So minus 12. Let's go back to where we were. So here's I'm sorry, I'm moving kind of quick. So we're going to go to the third sound, and we're going to pick category. We're going to move to brass. Maybe something like that. Okay. And once again, that sounds pretty loud. Okay. Okay. So now we can do, here, let me get my sustain pedal situated. We can do something. Okay, so what we can do here, and since we're already in mixer, on the mixer tab, you know, we hit exit, so we're in the main screen. We're in the mixer tab, right? To me, the piano sounded a little loud, so we can bring that down. Okay, the other thing too is that we want to have control, maybe a little bit more strings, right? So here's one way of doing the setup is that I want to touch the lead sound here. The reason I want to touch the lead sound is so I can have access over the fader on that sound. And let me explain why. If you want to just play strings and piano, you can use this as a volume fader for your lead sounds. Okay, so let's say we want to start right about here, and we'll play, you know. You know, and then when the next part goes, you know, you can go. Sorry. You get the point, right? So you can fade in the brass whenever you want to. Okay. So, let's say that we want to layer some sounds, okay? So let's say we want another lead sound to be added to this, okay? Let's go back to the program section. We'll go to menu. We're going to set up the fourth sound to be exactly the same. So on the fourth sound, we want it to be down an octave, okay? MIDI channel, we want it to be number 1. So what I've done is I went to the track parameter. Don't forget the MIDI channel tab. Make sure it's on channel 1, so it's playing on the same MIDI channel. The pitch, we brought it down an octave to be in the same range as everything else. Although that might change from sound to sound, and you'll see here in a little bit and see if I have to go up an octave, which minus 12 plus 12 would be 0, or if I have to go up 2 octaves, it'd be plus 12. But I'm moving too fast here for a second. So let's go to the next one, and we want to still split at the same spot. Hit enter, hit F sharp. Okay. So let's exit, and we can go here. And let's say we want to layer our brass with the synth sort of sound. So we can pick like a fast synth, which is already the category that's there initially. Well, let's try this powers. Excuse me, let's try this powers off. Okay, so, excuse me. Gonna hit OK. You hear that that's down an octave, so we'll have to go back to track parameter, make it 0. Okay, and let's go back to exit. We'll go to the fourth sound right here. Okay, so now let's say that we want to move to something where it's just strings, right? To the next section, right? Now, because of the way that the faders are set up, where you can only do one sound at a time, let's try to do something a little bit different. Let's try a different approach. And the reason I'm showing you this is because there's other things that you could do with the keyboard. Okay, so we're gonna go to menu. We're gonna go to the zone filter again, but this time we're gonna do a velocity zone. Okay, so what does that mean? This is the same thing like as far as the key zone, but this has to do with velocity. Velocity is how hard you hit a note, right? So we want to leave the strings wide open because we want the strings to be dynamic, right? But let's say the lead sounds, we want them to kick in at a much higher velocity, so you can control whether you have strings or you have a lead sound depending on how hard you're playing. Okay, so let's just pick like a medium heavy velocity. The same way, you hold down enter and then you hit the key at the velocity that you want to. So that's 105, and to keep things even, I'm just going to go and hit 105 on the next one. Okay, so if I'm playing lower than 105, okay, let's go back to the top, right? So now, okay, so you see right there, I'm playing and I'm trying to play with a lot of force to get the leads to come out, but what's happening is that I'm missing some of the notes. So we'll go back to the zone velocity. Let's try to bring it down to, let's say 100. Let's see if that helps. And this might vary depending on how hard you hit the notes and how accurate you can play as far as velocity. This doesn't necessarily work for everybody, but it's a good, feature if you're trying to do multiple sounds, right? So you can play with the velocity, but you have to be able to really play dynamically to really get the strings to come out or the leads, right? So that's the other way. There's other ways where you can control the values with like the knobs, but then you have to go back and individually edit each sound that you're using, and then it gets really complicated. But I think this is like the easiest way. The nice thing about this setup too is that if you're in program mode, right, and say you want to switch one of the sounds on the fly. By the way, to save this, you hit the right corner, you hit right combination, and let's just call this, here, I'll hit clear, I'll hit shift, we'll call it Tejano Keys. Okay, we hit OK. It says, are you sure? You hit yes. Now it's set up for that, right? So in this case, if I want to switch keyboard sound to something else, like let's say, I don't know, something like that. Okay, or even like, say we want to switch that sound, right? Let's say we want to switch the brass to another synth sound, like let's see here, like that. Let's say we want to do that, right? So that future brass needs to be brought up an octave, which would make things more complicated. Like, well, here, I'll show you what you can do. So we're going to go here. Sorry about that. We're going to go to edit. We're going to go to pitch on this. We're going to bring it up an octave, right? Okay. Let's go to exit. We'll go to mixer because I want that little bell sound to come out a little bit more. Maybe bring back that other synth. Okay. I wouldn't really use that piano sound, but I'm doing this just so you can see for intents and purposes of this video, right? So, okay, yeah, I don't like that piano, for this at least. Okay, so let's say we like that. There's a couple things that we can do. We can hit the record button over here, and it'll say, do you want to update the combination? If you hit yes, it stores, right? But we're gonna, and that would be the easiest way to save your updates. But let's say we like this new setup and we want to call it something else, right? So we can go right combination, and let's say we'll pick the one next to it or another open slot within the keyboard. And let's say we want to rename it let's see here. There we go. Las miradas. Hit OK. So now we have, this is the, that's the first one that we did. There's the next one that we did. Yeah. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can save, like once you have one kind of set where you want. The other thing we didn't talk much into, talk about is the effects, insert effects. So for example, here, let's go back to the original Tejano keys. Go to insert menu and say on the keyboard, we want to insert an effect. Let's just go to insert effect 1. Right now there's no effect, but if you go to insert right here, it gives you a whole mess of different effects here. So let's say we want like a chorus. That would be under pitch or phase shift. So let's just pick up this chorus. Right now it's off. We're going to enable it by hitting on. Makes it sound more lush. But other things too, like to me that brass has like too much of like kind of like subharmonic sounds, like really low sounds. So what we can do is set up effect number 2 to be an equalizer under here. Oh yeah, right here. 7 graphic under filter dynamic stereographic 7 band EQ. So we're going to turn that on, right? We're going to go back to the routing tab. We're going to get our brass. We're going to assign it to number 2. Oops, that's number 1. Number 2. Number 2. And what I'm going to do is go to this tab. You know, just kind of play with the EQ the way you want your keyboard to sound. So we can exit and then say we want to update that and keep those settings. We can hit OK. Last but not least, what I want to talk about is, say if we like that insert effect setting and we want to apply it to another sound. I'm sorry, another combination. Let's go to the Las Miradas one that we just made, right? We're going to go to menu, go to insert effects, we go to routing, go up to this tab right here, and it says copy insert effect, and you can tell it we want it from the combination, and I believe that the combination that we were using was 127, and let's see here. We have to go through the, right there. I forgot, I was in bank E, so we want to copy all, hit OK. And then we got to route the individual instruments to those. So the piano we did on the chorus, which was insert effect 1. And then the the lead sounds to 2. Okay, so the last thing too that, and I really don't use this too much, just because from a producer standpoint, I let reverb and delay be handled by the recording engineer or live sound engineer. So I try not to mess with that too much. However, I'll show you how to do it. Within insert effects, you can have two master effects sends. So what we can do here is turn up the send to 1 or 2, right? So let's just say I'm going to go to menu, go to master effect, and we want to pick a reverb. Hall reverb is fine. Just for this, we want to turn it on. Let's set this return to, I don't know, halfway, which is, I believe, 64. We'll go back to insert effect, and let's work with the piano. So number 1 is where we put the reverb. You know, and then for the lead, okay. I don't necessarily care for that, but if you want to, that's something that you could do. Well, I hope that this helped out a little bit. I know it's been kind of a long video, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Stay tuned to more stuff here on TejanoKeyboard.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you guys have any other questions, be sure to hit me up either here on YouTube, on Facebook, or you can go to our website, TejanoKeyboard.com. Thank you very much, and have a great day.